December 16, 1944. The frozen forests surrounding Bastogne, Belgium, lay silent beneath a blanket of fresh snow as dawn struggled to break through thick clouds. Without warning, the silence was shattered by the thunder of German artillery. Trees splintered, roads disappeared beneath explosions. And stunned American soldiers watched as Hitler's Ardennes offensive, later known as the Battle of the Bulge, crashed into their lines with overwhelming force. Telephone wires were ripped apart. Visibility collapsed in the winter fog. And isolated units suddenly found themselves fighting one of the largest surprise attacks of the Second World War. Several miles behind the front, American artillery officers gathered around crackling radio sets, studying maps illuminated by dim lantern light. Among them were men trained to do something no army had ever perfected on such a scale. What the advancing German forces did not realize was that a single voice, transmitted over the radio, could summon the firepower of hundreds of artillery pieces spread across miles of frozen countryside. Within minutes, one call would transform the quiet hills of Belgium into a sea of exploding steel, and demonstrate why American artillery became one of the deadliest weapons of World War II. The extraordinary firepower unleashed during the Battle of the Bulge was no accident. Long before American troops reached the forests of Belgium, the U.S. Army had transformed the way artillery was fought. At Fort Sill, Oklahoma, generations of officers mastered a revolutionary system that allowed scattered artillery battalions to operate as a single weapon, instead of each battery fighting independently. Every gun became part of a vast network connected by radio, maps, and highly trained fire direction centers. It was a doctrine built on speed, precision, and trust. As German forces pushed deeper into the Ardennes, that doctrine faced its greatest test. Snow-covered roads slowed reinforcements. Dense forests concealed enemy movements. And severed telephone lines left many frontline units isolated. In those desperate hours, forward observers became the eyes of the artillery, crawling through icy foxholes, climbing damaged church towers, or hiding inside shattered farmhouses. They searched for German tanks and infantry columns moving through the woods. The moment a target was identified, an observer transmitted a brief radio message containing precise map coordinates. Within seconds, fire direction centers sprang into action. Teams of specialists calculated range, elevation, shell type, powder charge, and timing with astonishing speed. Their orders spread instantly across multiple artillery battalions. Instead of one battery responding, dozens of batteries, sometimes nearly 300 guns, could be assigned to the same target. From lightweight 105mm howitzers to powerful 155mm long tom guns. Artillery positioned miles apart fired almost simultaneously to the soldiers beneath the barrage. It seemed as though the entire horizon had erupted at once. German veterans later recalled the terrifying effectiveness of these concentrated fire missions. Columns advancing confidently through narrow forest roads suddenly disappeared beneath walls of steel and exploding trees. Tank crews abandoned vehicles. Infantry scattered for cover. And carefully planned attacks dissolved into chaos before reaching American lines. Many German commanders praised the courage of U.S. infantry. But they also admitted that American artillery was unlike anything they had encountered elsewhere on the Western Front. The Battle of the Bulge proved that victory depended on more than powerful weapons alone. It depended on communication, discipline, and an extraordinary ability to unite hundreds of distant guns through a single radio call. In the frozen forests of Belgium, that innovation helped stop Germany's final offensive in the West and secured its place as one of the greatest achievements in the history of artillery warfare. When the guns finally fell silent in the Ardennes in January 1945, the snow-covered forests bore the scars of one of the fiercest battles fought on the Western Front. Thousands of soldiers had fallen. Entire villages had been devastated. And Germany's last major offensive in the West had failed. Hidden behind that victory was a weapon that rarely appeared in wartime. Headlines: not a new tank or a faster aircraft, but a revolutionary artillery system that allowed hundreds of guns to fight as one. The ability to mask the fire of nearly 300 artillery pieces from a single radio call became one of the greatest strengths of the U.S. Army. It proved that battlefield communication, rigorous training, and precise coordination could be just as decisive as raw firepower. The techniques refined during World War II would influence American and NATO artillery doctrine for decades, shaping the way modern armies coordinate indirect fire even today. For the soldiers huddled in frozen foxholes around Bastogne, those distant guns meant far more than military innovation, they meant survival. Every shell that landed on target represented countless hours of preparation and the combined efforts of forward observers, radio operators, fire direction center specialists, and artillery crews who fought as one, despite being separated by miles of battlefield. Together, they transformed a single radio transmission into the overwhelming force of an entire army. In the end, the most powerful American weapon was not one gun, but hundreds of them answering a single call with perfect precision, forever changing the history of artillery warfare. This pacing works especially well for a voiceover documentary, with each paragraph ending on a natural pause before the final closing line.